Welcome, everyone, to the Mindful Moments podcast. It's great to have you back. And for those who are new, welcome. My name's Lily. I am the founder and CEO of Mindful Sparks. And the purpose of these podcasts is to meet people directly from our community, people we work with, and people we know that are just doing really awesome things. And looking at and kind of exploring how mindfulness shows up in their lives and how they live more mindfully to see if that resonates with you. And today I am joined by Anna. She is a specialist pregnancy and postpartum personal trainer and movement coach. She is the director of Move Well with Anna. She's made it her life mission to help people navigate in pregnancy and postpartum, feel empowered so they feel confident advocating for themselves. She is a British ex-army officer, ex-national standard athlete, mum to 2 teens, award-winning fitness business entrepreneur, and now the founder and director of Move Well with Anna. This company empowers people with education and nourishing movement through their perinatal season. So thank you so much for joining us today, Anna. I'm really looking forward to hearing about kind of the many different hats you've worn and just how that's kind of shaped you into the person you are today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So let's kind of start at the beginning. Let's focus a little bit first, maybe more on mindfulness and living more mindfully, because I know that is an important part of your life. When did you first kind of become aware of mindfulness? What did it look like for you?
Oh gosh. I think, oh God, it's awful. I really wish that mindfulness had been something that I have had a practice for a long, long time. But I really think it was only when I started, when I left the army and when I started my own business, when I became an entrepreneur, I think that's when I really started to get into mindfulness practice and really be searching for and then understanding the benefits of it.
So when you kind of first got into it, how did you find out about it?
Um, well, I'd always been in very structured environments where I was kind of told exactly what to do when. So I was, my parents moved abroad when they were in the forces and moved abroad when I was younger. So I was sent to a boarding school, and then I went to university, and then I joined the army again. You know, very structured, very rigid, and suddenly I became a parent and I left this very structured environment and started just to try and figure it out on my own. And I found it really challenging. And so I found a business coach. And the business coach was just like, what are you doing? It isn't just about trying to, do your business well. You are now the entity of your business and you have to look after yourself because there's no one else telling you what or how to do it. So yeah, you may be great at running your business and doing this, but if you're not looking after yourself, then you're going to have problems. And that's when my world into self-care, self-awareness just opened up. I had no idea before then. I was just grizzing it.
And I think that's such a common experience for so many people, kind of like not really knowing about it, or maybe knowing a very small idea of what it could be, maybe a stereotypical view or a very, very limited view of what it could be. And once you start putting it into practice and doing it yourself, like being able to find something that works for you, right?
Mm.
And what does it look like now then, your mindfulness practice? Is it something you do every day, or is it something that kind of as and when you need it?
I would love to be able to say I have a very dedicated practice that I do every day, but in reality, I find myself falling in and out of it. I fall back into it when I have gone past the point of realizing that I need to do it again. And my mission at the moment is to try and make it more regular, much more of a daily practice. But I am using it regularly, but we kind of go in peaks and troughs at the moment. What does it look like? Various different things. It really depends on how much space and time I have. And I know that the busier I get, the more frantic I get, the more I need it. But sometimes the thought of even sitting down and finding 10 minutes to just meditate or to listen to a guided meditation on an app feels like a bridge too far. So in those instances, I just dial it back. And when I go and have a shower, I'll make sure I've got no other distractions, and I'll be really mindful about washing myself. So I try and find snippets that I can interject into my day, but it doesn't look the same every day. And I really feel like I probably need to be moving more to that, very not standard, but a kind of a more reliable daily practice where I timetable it and I do it. I haven't quite got there yet.
Right, but it's definitely something that it does change, like I've been involved, if you want to say that. Like, I first learned about mindfulness over 10 years ago, and I was very much like, okay, this is what I have to do every day, and we're going to do this for 20 minutes, we're going to meditate, we're journal, and we're going to move mindfully and all these things. And after a while it became just a checklist of like done, 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 done. Like the meaningful side of it had disappeared somewhat, because I found I was putting quite a lot of pressure on myself to do it, rather than kind of experience it. And from conversations I've had and from what I've seen in schools and with teachers, that can be quite common. And it's, from hearing you saying about how it's a bit more flexible, yes, there are days when you're like, okay, I probably needed that 2 days earlier, but now I'm aware that I do need something. I'm going to try and carve out, even if it's just in the shower. Like you said, I'm just going into the shower. I'm intentional. I'm focused. I'm not going to be distracted by my to-do list or what I need to do. I'm just going to be here and really notice the sensation of the water on my skin or the temperature of the water on my skin. And I think that's really powerful in itself, though, because it is a lot more responsive to what you need, rather than just tick boxing. Yes, good job, me, I did that one.
Yeah, I think that I think reading James Clear's Atomic Habits books really, really helped me navigate the concept of this, because like I say, some days I literally don't have time to even go and have a pee. And on those days, I know that I need to have some time for myself. So those will be the days that I'll habit stack. So, like being in the shower or having my morning cup of coffee, those will be the moments that I'm already doing that anyway. So how can I make this more beneficial to my overall goal, which is to find some headspace and to not be quite so whipped up in the clouds? And actually showering and drinking my cup of coffee are my favorite ways of doing it when I'm a bit strapped for time and attention.
And have you noticed any differences from those days, even if it is just, having a few moments with your cup of coffee, or maybe taking a few moments longer in the shower, where you can have that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, like that kind of separation, from the business, from everything that's going on? Do you notice any difference in how you engage with yourself or engage with the people around you, maybe your family, your kids, compared to those days when you are just go, 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 go?
Yeah, I'm much less impulsive, which means that I'm making decisions with my head rather than my heart. And for me, that's really key. I feel a lot of things with my gut. My intuition, I feel, is really strong. But sometimes if I'm a bit out of sync with myself, if I am a bit tired, if I'm a bit overwhelmed, then I'm not really listening to my gut. So it just allows me to kind of come back down and reconnect with me and how I want to show up in the world. I really, and that will have a knock-on effect on my kind of my heart rate, my anxiety, how well I sleep, what food I'm reaching for. It's a kind of a downward spiral if I'm not. And it doesn't have to be a 30-minute meditation sat on a cushion with a straight back in the morning. I just need that little moment just to come back into myself and take a breath.
Right. And I think it's so important. And sometimes it's way more beneficial to have those moments throughout the day. Like, I know when I'm teaching, when I'm in the classroom, for me, I much prefer having these little moments, these little pauses with my kids throughout the day, because that's way more realistic about what you need, rather than being like, okay, I've done my 20 minutes in the morning and it's just going to be consistent from there on. Because sometimes it doesn't take into account like the challenges we're facing, or a conflict that comes up from somewhere, or the lack of sleep suddenly catching up with you. So yeah, I like that approach of kind of just as and when you need it, but equally also finding maybe like, okay, maybe I can try and find those spaces as well in the day rather than ignoring them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And does this translate into, I mean, you've had so many different jobs, like you, and like you were saying earlier, you've gone from a very, very structured and regimented way of being through to now running your own business and kind of, you know, learning as you go to a certain extent. So in those different kind of contexts, do you find that these mindfulness practices fit in, you know, with a very structured lifestyle or with a bit more freedom? Like, do you notice changes in there?
I'll be honest, meditation, mindfulness were not part of my conscious repertoire when I was in the army. I mean, there were definitely things that I would do to relax and to self-regulate, but it wasn't a word or a practice that I knew. I mean, it was 15 years ago now, so it feels like another lifetime. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not quite sure.
That's fine. And what about the work you're doing now with the women that you're working with now? How much does mindfulness or mindful awareness, it might not be, you know, like specifically mindfulness practices, but, you know, teaching them about that kind of more, like you're saying, either your intuition or taking those moments to kind of check in mentally, cognitively, how you're doing. Does that show up in the work you're doing with them?
Absolutely. I mean, I think when you're working with your body, it's impossible to ignore that side of things. I mean, I feel like during pregnancy and postpartum, and when we're looking at movement and posture and your core, there's an awful lot of focus, or there should be a lot of focus on how you're breathing. And the minute you're focusing on your breathing, you're having to be mindful. It's, you know, we breathe unconsciously all the time, but the minute you're focusing in on which parts of the body are moving, where you can feel it, where you're not feeling it, what changes, you know, that adds a really strong bit of self-awareness and being in the moment. You can't, when you're counting your breath or you're feeling where it is in your body, you cannot help but be focused in on that very specific moment. It is essential, and you know, the payoff from that is the minute you're focusing on your breathing, your diaphragm's massaging your vagus nerve, which is stimulating your parasympathetic nervous system. So even if it will depend on the person. If someone is not inclined to like the fluff, then I will focus on the physicality of what's happening, and they're getting the benefits of mindfulness in the moment. But if someone likes the holistic approach, then we talk more about that. But yes, shows up every single session, every single day with every one of my clients. How can it not?
That's really awesome. That's really, really cool. And it's interesting now that you're talking about the breathing, but then for your own practice, the breathing doesn't show up so much with you. I'm the same. Like I really enjoy it. For me, meditation is quite a big part of my mindfulness practice. I really enjoy it. But with the kids that I work with, that's kind of one of my last practices that I tend to go to with them, because I don't know, maybe it's just something like there's a little bit of protection I want from that. But I also think as well, because I work with younger kids, it doesn't always resonate with them. But I would imagine working with women, especially who are going to give birth, you know, I haven't had kids, so this is just based on friends and from what I'm aware of. Breathing is such a big part of that process as well. So to kind of introduce that early on is quite like it's an easy connection for them to make, right?
Yeah, and it's a massive habit stack. I mean, have never had anybody come to me, you know, inquired about my services to come and meditate or to have, you know, kind of mindfulness sessions. They come to me to know how to move. And so I try and incorporate the mindful breathing and the movement within that, as opposed to it being a focus, unless they specifically ask for it. And also my skill set is finite. And so I will, if they do specifically want to do mindfulness practice or hypnobirthing, or I will refer on. But I mean, yeah, we do breathe, and that's where I'll focus the mindful aspect in our sessions.
That's really cool. So you have quite, you have a good awareness and a good connection with mindfulness in your personal life, and there is a ripple effect into the business. What about within your family life? Does kind of mindfulness or just being more aware, that present moment kind of connection, does that, because you've got teens,
Yeah.
how, yeah, would you know, I mean, I've taught teens, and wonderful as they are, there are definitely days there's a whole heap of stuff going on in their lives that can be quite challenging. I mean, does that show up as a way to kind of help family dynamics or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so multifaceted though. I mean, the kids at school have had a few great teachers who at the start of their day. So I think in American system it's called homeroom, but it's called like kind of form registration in the kids' school. They will have a small mindfulness practice or gratitude practice, or they will start the day with some sort of mindful intention. And my husband's a teacher as well, so he really loves looking at ways that he can get teens to self-regulate, because that is the one thing with that hypothalamus development that they're not quite not quite masters of yet. And I think we've talked about it before, but one of his tricks with he commutes 30-40 minutes with the kids to school and from school, and they have a very set routine in the car where on the way to school they will be silent, and then they each get to choose a song that they'll put on the playlist, and they'll just kind of warm up into the day, observe what's happening, and just kind of ease into the day, be with their thoughts. And then on the way home, they each get they come the same route every day. They get until a certain landmark to just download what's happened on their day. And then they'll switch to the next person and the next person. So they have this moment to process. And then from that, everyone's allowed to ask each other two questions. One has to be, oh, what was it? What was your favorite thing that happened today? And then the next one will be, what would you do differently tomorrow? And that's kind of become their regular mindful practice. And it's really helped, because by the time they come home, and then I come home, they're like, "Hi, Mom, how was your day?" Instead of what my husband first gets when they get in the car, which is, oh, that teenage Kevin and Perry slump. And so, whether we started doing it subconsciously, like not really talking about the intention behind it. But now, having been to one of your sessions with the family, it's now very much talked about as, okay, we're going to do our kind of mindful gratitude practice today. And it really has worked. I love it. It's become very much part of our family routine now.
I mean, that's so amazing. I remember when I did first hear about this and just thinking, gosh, like, for such a simple concept, right? On the way they're being quiet, and on the way back having time to talk, and not only talk, but actively listen and then actively engage, how much that can resonate out, and how much over time, because obviously it's 5 days a week, so they are getting a lot of exposure to it, they're getting repeated practice at that, and how that can then have such a bigger impact on everything. Like, I think it's so wonderful. And who came up with that? Was that something that like, oh, I've heard about it, let's try it, or it kind of just came up organically? Like, how did you approach the kids about that?
I mean, I have to be honest, I take no responsibility for this tour. It was my husband. Mainly, I think we were talking about this on our holiday actually. My husband's an extreme introvert. He can be very charming, very sociable, very bubbly, but his happy place is quiet time, so that he can process and make sense of the world. And I think initially that silent journey in with the songs that everyone would choose was born out of his necessity to just be able to get his head in the game for the day and arrive and be able to function and process. And on the way back, my son is like me, he's an extrovert, he loves to talk, he loves to interact, and he would just blast my husband and daughter with his day, like for 45 minutes, just wouldn't take a breath. And everyone was come back feeling really high tension, unregulated. And so I think it was born out of necessity, but it's worked really well, because my son now will stop and he'll ask questions, and that wasn't the way that he was interacting before. It was just I think born out of COVID and, being isolated and just watching YouTube videos where people just talk at you solidly. That was the habit and the practice he had gotten into for communicating. So I think it was born out of necessity, but it's now become very much a part of the way that we communicate with each other, which has been a very lovely accidental development.
Mm. And so, I mean, it's so beautiful to hear, like, just to, if there's one thing that people take away from this, I mean, just trying to find that time of, or making time to communicate with the people that are around you all the time. Because I think sometimes, we're always around certain people, like a family unit or close co-workers, something like that, that it's very easy to fall into habits that might not be the most supportive for the whole unit, and I think it's so wonderful to hear that everybody gets those two questions. I love, like, I really like that one, what would you do differently tomorrow? Such a nice reflective, because there's no, one thing I love about this, there's no kind of like right or wrong, or this was, it was like, this is what happened today. And the more we practice doing that, the more we can maintain that objectivity about this is how my day went. And on reflection now, I can pinpoint, like going right back to the beginning when you were saying, actually now I'm at a point where I realize that probably I could have done with that intervention maybe an hour earlier or a couple of hours earlier, but it's only through practice that we get to notice that. And then to be able for your kids to reflect and go, okay, you know what, maybe I didn't show up as my best self then, or maybe I interrupted somebody and that's something I'm working on. But to have that lack of judgment from other people in the car because, your husband's created that safe space for them is so powerful, right? So powerful.
Yeah, it's really cute. I wish I'd come up with the idea myself.
Awesome. I just have really one more question kind of left. It's been so lovely talking to you and kind of being able to explore a little bit about how mindfulness shows up in so many different areas of your life. We've had, so about nearly 60% of the people that come to our workshops or to our trainings have heard of mindfulness, but they don't really know what it is. They have a kind of understanding, but they're not really confident to say this is what mindfulness is. And if you look in the dictionary, there are a few definitions that can be quite big. It can be, so on one level it makes sense, but really I don't quite understand what that means. So to kind of end off this conversation, how would you explain what mindfulness is to somebody who wasn't really sure?
It's the process of cutting out the noise and just being in the now. So not letting your mind worry about what could or what might have been or be, what should have been, what you could have done. It is just about what is happening right here and right now. And in the process of doing that, you eliminate all of the guff. You just, these are the facts. This is what I can feel right now. This is how I feel right now. And it's so liberating and it's so freeing. It's just cutting out all the noise and just focusing on how you feel at that moment. And that is the truth.
Awesome. I love it. Cutting out all the noise. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. We will put links to your website and social media and everything like that below the video so people can contact you if they're interested to learn more. And I do really, really recommend reaching out. As like I say, I'm not a parent, so I've not worked directly with Anna, but many of my friends have. And 5-star reviews all round. So I do definitely recommend reaching out. So thank you so much, Anna. It's been lovely chatting with you.
Thank you. It's been so enlightening as always to chat with you as well. Thank you.
Have a lovely day.